Good morning and welcome to all of you here in Indianapolis and to all of you joining us online to the third plenary of the North American Conference. I am Cynthia George with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Today's plenary focuses on how people with CF and families make a difference by partnering with the larger community as advocacies, by sharing their expertise with living with this disease and through event and peer mentoring. But before we begin, I have the distinct honor of presenting the Mary M. Contos Care Champion Award. Mary was a pediatric nurse practitioner and program coordinator at the CF Center of Western New York. We remember her today with this award, presented to a non-physician member of the care team who has made significant contributions in the field of day-to-day care. Of the 16 highly qualified nominees, believe me, it was very difficult to select, 2 were selected to receive this year's award. These individuals display Mary's passion for excellence, her commitment to improving the lives of people with CF through exceptional care and advocacy, and lifelong dedication to leading and advancing CF community. Our first recipient has been a nurse leader in our community for over 15 years, serving on numerous CF Foundation committees and serving as one of your nursing representatives on the NACFC Program Planning Committee. With her can-do attitude and vivacious energy, she has been a strong advocate and driving force of excellence in adult CF care, both nationally and at her program. Team members say she inspires them and mentors them to drive for excellence in their expertise, and that her strong leadership has transformed their center into an adult center of excellence throughout our network. Adults with CF at her center say that she treats us all as individuals. Her honesty and her straightforward manner help us tackle those difficult times, and her wonderful sense of humor makes them more bearable. She has transformed our experience as adult patients with CF into something amazing. I am proud to present the first recipient of the Mary M. Contos Award to Debbie Benitez, nurse practitioner and clinic coordinator for the Adult CF program at Keck Medical Center of USC. Debbie will be coming up with our second award recipient. Our second award recipient is described as a dedicated dietitian who has been committed to improving nutritional outcomes for individuals with CF, both at her program and nationally since 1993. She generously shares her experience and expertise through many roles. They include being a mentor to other dietitians, serving on multiple CF Foundation clinical care guideline committees, educating other care team disciplines, and being a contributor on numerous national publications. One parent shared that she is the face that we look forward to seeing when we go to clinic. Her interest in our son goes far beyond nutrition and diet. She takes time to get to know our son personally and look at his life beyond CF. She sat next to me as a first-time inpatient mom to offer support and compassion. She laughs with us, worries with us, and cries with us. Her supportive nature has lessened the stress and anxiety of calorie counting and weight gain. She is not just a member of our CF care team, she is a member of our family. I am proud to announce the second award recipient of the Mary M. Contos Award is Catherine McDonald, CF registered dietitian at the Intermountain Cystic Fibrosis Pediatric Program. Please join me in congratulating. Come on up, guys. Debbie and Catherine, all of us thank you for being champions of our care for our community. Now it's time to recognize the next up-and-coming generation of investigators. We must recruit and mentor the next wave of leaders in CF care and research. The selection committee had difficulty choosing among the many high-quality abstracts this year. And congratulations to all the young investigators who presented their work at this year's conference. The 2017 Junior Investigator Awards for Best Abstract in Basic Science goes to Catherine Oliver, Emory University. And the Best Abstract for Clinical Research goes to Jonathan Raymond from the Hospital for Sick Children. Congratulations to both. We want to acknowledge and thank the group who work year-round to make this meeting the success that it is. Please join me in a round of applause for the superb work of Cynthia Adams and her team, the CF Foundation Meetings team. Thank you, Cynthia. And now I am honored to introduce a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Drusy Borowitz, who is Senior Vice President of the Community Partnerships at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. She is also an Emeritus Professor of Clinical Pediatrics at the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences of the University at Buffalo, and has served as the Director of the CF Center of Western New York until 2014. Dr. Borowitz joined the Foundation in 2016 to lead the Community Partnerships Department and helping to bring the perspective of people affected by CF into CF programs and initiatives throughout the Foundation and beyond. She is also leading efforts for people with CF to connect and interact with each other in new and meaningful ways. Also joining Drusy today during session is my dear colleague, Mary Dwight, who is Senior Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at the Foundation. Mary directs policy and advocacy to advance research, drug development, and improve access to high-quality CF care. Mary will be moderating a panel of CF community members and clinicians on the power of advocacy. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Well, good morning to everyone. It is, Cindy, isn't it amazing to just sort of be in this room with this energy? It's just great. And welcome to all of you. So this morning we have thanked the care team members, and we all know how important they are to all of the work that we do. We've thanked young scientists, again, a key part of what we are focusing on at the Foundation. And we've also thanked our medical meetings team who put together this great event. But we really need to thank, oh, here's my disclosures. I have nothing to disclose. But we really need to thank the parents who founded this foundation in 1955 when they refused to accept the grim prognosis of CF at that time. They knew, and we will focus for the rest of this plenary session on that formative idea that when we partner together, we can work and accomplish more than any of us by ourselves. During last year's plenary number 2, we heard about the power of involving people with CF in clinical research, and I'm happy to say that that work continues on. We're going to build on that theme this year by talking about ways that all of us can partner. Those of you online, those of you in the room, clinicians, scientists, chapter staff, volunteers, and especially people with CF and their families in these aspects. As advocates, partnering in CF care, and connecting with others affected by CF. We'll talk about ways that you can connect and support with each other. Sometimes you don't even realize how many interconnections there are. Initially, we thought that CF was a problem with the normal efflux of chloride and free flow of water across the apical surface of epithelial cells. Eventually, we came to realize that CFTR connected with other ion channels, including ENAC, the sodium channel, and SLC channels that affect chloride and bicarbonate exchange. But why am I talking about CFTR and its connections at this plenary that isn't usually focused on basic science? It's not just to pander to the scientists in the room, although we really do need you, so keep working. But it's because cell biology mirrors human ecology. And just as ion channels have interconnections that have to work together for health, so our community needs to work together to achieve our full health. We are a community of communities, and people with CF and their family are at the centers. But CFTR is also at the center of many interconnections. In fact, the more we look, the more we see how many pathways are affected by CFTR and are important for health. What I want to bring the analogy to you is that just as CFTR is at the middle, so are people with CF and their families. And they're at the middle of an interconnected community that involves all of us, everyone in this room and everyone online. So we have learned how to potentiate CFTR, which is at the hub of so many interconnected channels. And we've been able to do that and create life-changing medicines. But by strengthening the interconnections among all of us in our community, we can also change lives. All of us have heard about the power of ivacaftor to change the course of CF, and you can see this downward trend in lung function in one individual with CF. When that person began ivacaftor, there was this incredible increase in lung function. Rebecca Schroeder, a fierce advocate for people with CF, and has a child with CF, and she felt so strongly she had it tattooed on her foot. So the rest of this plenary is going to focus on this same power of potentiation. Potentiation means enabling the CFTR protein to reach its full capacity, and we want to talk about ways that we are enabling our community to reach its full capacity. This year we'll focus on these areas: potentiating the power of the community as advocates, potentiating the power of partnership in CF care, and potentiating connections among people with CF. This power can also change the course of CF as strongly as ivacaftor. Drug discovery and development are core goals and remain at the heart of what the CF Foundation does. But we can develop all sorts of life-changing medicines and medicines to help with symptoms. But if people don't have access to those medicines or the care that's needed, the clinical expertise for prescribing those medicines, it's as if they didn't exist. So in the first part of this plenary, we're going to focus on how members of our community have been able to advocate for each other. With that, I'd like to turn the plenary over to Mary Dwight, who is the Senior Vice President for Policy and Advocacy, and she's going to introduce her panel of advocates. But before we do that, I'd like to show you a video that highlights the power of advocacy. So if you could please roll the video. Thanks.
About 20 years ago, Bill was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Today, Bill is in his third year of medical school.
a disease that affects 30,000 people in the US and 70,000 people worldwide.
It's called cystic fibrosis, and I'm going to explain to you how that works.
It's very, very important that there is robust funding to propel research forward. They work for us. They care about what we think.
If a representative is doing his or her job, we answer to the people.
What can we do here in Congress to shorten the discovery and development process for the next personalized medicine?
It is time for Congress to become more involved in the pursuit of a cure.
I love that video, and that's just a sliver. Thank you, Drusi, and I have no disclosures related to this presentation. So I'm delighted to be here talking about advocacy. Advocacy, at its core, harnesses the collective power of the cystic fibrosis community to advance our mission, to find a cure and to ensure that everyone with CF has high-quality specialized care and access and coverage for it. The community's advocacy efforts have paved the way for us to move faster towards that goal. Over the years, CF advocates' efforts have brought attention to cystic fibrosis. You saw that early picture, establishing a voice. They've advanced and funded basic research. They have ensured that clinical research is more efficient, more effective, and open to all. They have established and improved cystic fibrosis care and ensured access and coverage for it. Tens of thousands of people have been involved in this work, and we are a small but mighty community. Advocating takes many forms, from one-on-one discussions with decision makers to thousands of community members mobilizing to generate a groundswell, to collaborations with entities beyond our CF community to work towards common goals. This can happen anywhere, here in the US, internationally, in one-on-one small conversations like a school board helping them to understand the needs of a CF child, to the US Congress to articulate the CF community's needs for innovative research or access and coverage to healthcare. Advocacy at its essence is the CF community educating decision makers about our needs, our work, and then asking them to help us make it happen. This year, the debate over reforming the US healthcare system and coverage for it, including evaluating the framework for the Affordable Care Act that provides vital protections for people with pre-existing conditions, including those with cystic fibrosis, and also taking a look at critical programs that provide that coverage like Medicaid, brought to light the importance and the power of the CF community's advocacy efforts. The community rallied around our shared principles that you see here, that CF care must be adequate, affordable, and accessible to all. It has been an intense effort, and the CF community punched well above our weight. The voices of this community rose above the fray in meetings with elected officials, through tens of thousands of phone calls, emails, and texts to Congress, and in op-eds in local and national media. The CF community worked together to share our story and our needs. It has been enormously powerful to watch, and it will be critically important to continue because this debate is far from over. Our collective mission to end cystic fibrosis will not and cannot be complete if anyone with cystic fibrosis cannot access their care and treatment. So I am proud to be joined on stage today to talk a little bit more about this by 4 highly effective and extremely powerful advocates who will share what advocacy looks like to them and why it is an essential component of our work to find a cure. Their disclosures are on the screen. So I want to start with my dear friend, Melissa Schiffman. Melissa is a New Yorker, an adult with cystic fibrosis, a mom of 2 children, a great strider, and one of the co-chairs of the CF Foundation's national advocacy efforts. And this year in particular, she has been a fearless and inspiring leader for thousands of people. Melissa, why is it so important to advocate, and why do you?
So as CF adults, we are powerless to this disease. We can only control so much: adherence to medication and treatments, exercise, and just trying to stay as healthy as possible. And as much as we would like to have a positive impact on the community, we are limited as to how we can do that. Excuse me. Oops, sorry. For example, in this conferences like these, often there is only one person with cystic fibrosis in the room, and that is true across the country in education days, advocacy days, fundraisers, etc. So as someone who likes to dive in and participate, it can be really frustrating and it feels impotent. So in that respect, advocacy has changed my life. To be able to make a difference, to have value, to have a voice has meant everything to me. And walking into an elected official's office and saying, here I am, this is my CF story, this is what I need to stay healthy, and this is what you're going to do to help my family, is an incredibly powerful experience. And I encourage all CF adults to get involved. Advocacy can be as simple as a phone call or an email. It can be an in-district meeting with your legislator in or around your hometown. And for all the clinicians in the audience and online, I encourage you to get involved too. The social worker at my CF center traveled with me to Albany this past winter to advocate during New York State Advocacy Day, as well as other clinicians across the state. And as a patient, it was so meaningful to watch her speak on behalf of New Yorkers with cystic fibrosis and advocate for what we need to succeed. So the CF community will help you every step of the way. I understand it sounds intimidating, but they'll help you know exactly what you need to know as for when you walk into that meeting or, make that phone call. As Mary was saying, this year it has been so profound to watch the community come together to advocate on behalf of access to adequate, affordable health care. There were many legislative attempts to remove critical health care protections for people with CF, and this amazing community of families, friends, clinicians, etc., came together and made our voices heard, and they made quite an uproar. I think it was 13,000 advocates made contact with legislators 37,000 times. I mean, that's pretty good for an orphan disease. Yeah. The foundation held webinars to educate us on the policies and the impacts it would have on people with cystic fibrosis, and we used that knowledge to talk to members of Congress via social media, phone, email, texting, and meetings. And this incredible group of advocates, and I see so many of you here, and I know some of you are listening online, we communicated several times daily, updating each other on what was going on, encouraging each other when we were feeling tired and defeated, and making sure that we were understanding what was happening across the landscape. And we actually created a Facebook campaign recording ourselves calling our members of Congress just to model how easy it was, and sharing scripts and target, members of Congress to target. And as we saw in the video, let's not forget that it was a grandmother who told her grandson's CF story to Senator Susan Collins that motivated her to vote against the Senate bill 3 times. So. I hope there are CF adults tuning in today, and I hope that you will get involved in advocacy. And to all the clinicians out there, you are the main CF connection with families. So I hope that you'll take what you learned today and share the ways to get involved with your community in your hometowns and let the CF adults have a voice in our community.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next, let's hear from Kim Reno. Kim Reno, as many of you know, is a phenomenal social worker in Toledo, Ohio, and in this context has been a long-time champion for people with cystic fibrosis. First, unbeknownst to her, in the state of Ohio, and really leading the way to show us about what we need to be doing at the state level. She even has an official position in the state of Ohio. She serves on the Ohio State Legislative CF Task Force, and she sparks many others to action. So Kim, tell us how you got involved in advocacy and in what ways you've advocated.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here today and to share my story. It's an honor to be with all of you here. When I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I had never dreamed I would be in the role of an advocate. I thought I'd get my job at the hospital and just work behind the scenes and help our patients and families and everything would be good. But then we had problems with our Children with Medical Handicaps programs, or the CMH. And that's a program within our state that provides insurance coverage to adults and children with CF. And many states have a similar program, it's just going to be called a different thing. And I kept seeing the changes that were happening, and I became very passionate about the plight of our patients and what they were going through to try and get access to medications and care. So I kept thinking, if I don't speak up, who will? And so I did. And I started out really simply. I just made letters, I wrote letters, I made phone calls to some of our legislators. I pulled in our team members to help with the letters. And even recruited patients and families to do it as well. And would you believe it? Those letters actually worked. And so we got a meeting with our Ohio Department of Health. And so we talked about the program with him. And from that, we were able to provide written and verbal testimony in the State House, which I had never done before. And it was really amazing to see it work. And we had patients and families that came with us. Our center director came, and we had advocates across the state who were joining us. And it made a difference because the funding was restored a year later. It took a year, but we got it back. Since then, my advocacy has been more proactive. As Mary mentioned, I'm a member of the Legislative Task Force, and it really helps me to be able to keep in contact with advocates across the state, to know what's going on within the state, to make sure that all of our patients have access to the care that they need for their CF needs. Pardon me. In addition, we are experts in CF care, right? The care teams are the ones that are the experts. And so in Ohio, we no longer have fee-for-service Medicaid, but we have Medicaid managed care plans. There's 5 of them in Ohio. And so we brought all of the managed care plans, or invited them to our care center. And wouldn't you believe it, they all showed up. And they all brought at least one person from their program to our center. And our center director provided a CF 101 class on CF needs, answered questions about medications, was able to talk about the care guidelines and the care that our patients require. It's not just some hocus pocus magical thing. There's actually guidelines that we follow, and so it was a great experience for them. And we also had an opportunity to have meetings with the Ohio Children's Hospital Association, the president of the OCHOA, and administrators from ProMedica, which is our parent institution, our center director, several administrators from ProMedica, as well as a family. Most importantly, a family came with us, or actually came to the institution. And we had local legislators that came as well. And that meeting was so successful that it was used as an example throughout the entire state. So here I am, almost 20 years later, never dreamed I would be here on this stage sharing my story. And it's easy. It truly is easy to get involved with just letters and phone calls. And I implore you, it works. It truly works. And we need all of us to step up
and to advocate for all of the patients that we can have the pleasure of working with and serving.
Thanks, Kim. Ohio really has served as a model that can and is being replicated across the country, so it's been a wonderful thing to watch. So I want to turn to Peter Berry. Peter is the father of Jamie, who just turned 22, who has cystic fibrosis, an adult with CF. Yep. He has been a long-time advocate and champion for the foundation in a lot of different ways, but a particular champion for advocacy, and I think one of the people who early on saw the importance of the role of carrying our voices beyond our own community. And so I want to thank you for that, Peter, and I want to ask you what impact you have seen from your advocacy efforts.
Well, thanks, Mary, and it's a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about our advocacy experiences. I also have to say it's a huge honor to be here and totally humbling to be with all of you who've dedicated your lives to cystic fibrosis research and CF patients. My wife and I and all the advocates here, we always struggle as parents how to say thank you, and there's never the right words. But what we tend to say is very simply, thank you for saving our kids. That's all we can come up with, so I think it says it all. My wife and I first got involved in advocacy as a way to help the foundation beyond fundraising. Unlike most of you here, we have no scientific backgrounds. But what we do know is how cystic fibrosis affects our son's life every day and also his future. To be candid, maybe like many of you in the room, I was kind of skeptical that this would have any effect. I didn't think that volunteers talking about public policy and how it affected their lives would really have any impact. But over the years, I've become a true believer. It really first hit me, it was 2010. We had been visiting with our North Carolina Senator Burr's office. The issue we'd been advocating for was something called IACT, which is an acronym for Improving Access to Clinical Trials. It's legislation that the foundation crafted in conjunction with other rare disease groups. Before IACT, a patient on disability or Medicaid who participated in a clinical trial was at risk for losing their benefits when the very small incremental stipend they received for participating in the trial kicked them into a higher income bracket. And so obviously patients were having to choose between clinical trials and keeping their benefits. We had made it very personal. We had said to Senator Burr's office, the failure to enroll clinical trials was a threat to our child. It was really a non-controversial bill. The CBO, which we all know and hear about, had scored it at 0 cost, so it really wasn't controversial, but it just wasn't getting enough attention. I'll never forget, I was sitting in my office in Charlotte on a Friday afternoon, late on a Friday afternoon. I usually am not there late, but it was late, and my point is, I got a phone call from Washington, and it was Jennifer from Senator Burr's office. And she said, I want you to be the first to know that IACT just passed the Senate, and I want you to call me if there's anything else we can do for your family. I was stunned. I was just as stunned when I quickly Googled IACT and found out this was not even public information yet. Over the years, we've also seen the value and the impact that many voices speaking as one can have when trying to address public policy. Before every visit that we have to our offices of our elected officials, we listen as the phones ring, and we watch as staffers take notes, often meticulous notes, especially at times when there is critical legislation approaching the Congress. What happened this year, as Melissa and Mary mentioned, was nothing short of amazing. A tidal wave of calls came in expressing concerns about healthcare legislation and what that would do to them and the CF community. And as you probably are aware, there were an awful lot of elected officials who specifically cited the percentage of calls against the legislation as a reason for them saying no. So the point is, those calls are counted, and they are tabulated, and they are watched. We recognize now that many of you have so much else going on. You're doing God's work, as I said. You're saving our kids. But it is really easy to get involved, as Melissa said. An email, a phone call, get on the phone, talk about how the legislation would affect your life. Make it personal. Talk about your CF story. talk about how the legislation would impact your clinic, your patients, your research, and you. And so we hope you will speak up, get involved, and be counted. Thanks.
So last but not least, let's hear from a clinician who puts advocacy right at the top of his to-do list, Dr. Ron Rubenstein, who is at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia as a CF caregiver and a CF clinical researcher. Ron is also a tenacious advocate, particularly at the state level. I will let him speak for himself about how positive or negative that goes sometimes. But he is one of our intrepid Pennsylvania lobbyists who we call on regularly because he's made the best of many against all odds scenarios in Pennsylvania.
So I also want to thank Mary for the opportunity to share some of my experiences with you. As a physician and as an investigator, I really try to take the data about CF, the data that many in this room have helped to generate, and make these data accessible and understandable to state officials so they can make very informed decisions about what the policies that actually hit the people and affect the people look like. The best way I can explain this is with two examples. Through regular meetings that we have arranged with the Secretary of Health and the Physician General in Pennsylvania, we had talked about our state's assistance program for people with CF, what we call the State Contract for Care of Children with Chronic Disease. As we were wrapping up these meetings, and as many physicians know, you often get the major concern of the meeting and the, oh, by the way, at the end. So we were wrapping up one of these meetings, and they said, well, is there anything else? And I said, oh, by the way, there is one other thing. As a group, the center directors in Pennsylvania had become very concerned that our newborn screening algorithm was missing children. So I shared with the Physician General and the Secretary of Health 2 cases where the newborn screening algorithm had egregiously missed the diagnosis of CF in 2 children who had somewhat immediate health issues that came out of that. That brief few minutes got the state administration on board with working with the center directors, the advisory committee for newborn screening, and the state contractor for newborn screening to go about revising the newborn screening algorithm in Pennsylvania. And that went into effect earlier this year. And it's now completely up to date with what is recommended. The second example is working with the state Medicaid pharmacy and the director of the state Medicaid pharmacy about access to medicine. So we had also had regular meetings with the state Medicaid pharmacy and the director. And in this, discussing the data of other uses of medicines, common ones, azithromycin, pulmozyme, things that we all use quite regularly. Through this, when the modulators came up and the obvious expense associated with the modulators, we already had a context in which to interpret the data and see how they fit in with the already used medicines. It was through this context that I was able to convince them that no, a drop in sweat chloride did not predict an improvement with ivacaftor. That a hospitalization as a course of somebody's care while taking these medicines was not a sign that it was failing. That a transient elevation of liver function tests did not say that somebody had terminal toxicity from one of these agents. And most importantly, that you didn't have to have your FEV1 improve 3% in order to say you were responding to Orkambi. But simple things like explaining that day-to-day variation in that measure is 5%. So how can I demand a 3% improvement when They might go down 2% just as a normal course. So through these discussions, when the guidelines were being debated, I was able to make comments on the guidelines for the state. And then I was told, because I wasn't allowed in the final meeting, that whenever one of these objections was brought up by one of the payers, the director said, well, Dr. Rubenstein said that wasn't true. And through this, we got one of the most reasonable set of Medicaid reimbursement guidelines for these modulators. So taking the data allows us to make sure that people with CF are getting what's appropriate for them under the appropriate circumstances without undue threats of losing it.
Thank you, Ron. So thank you very much to our amazing panel. It's been a privilege to watch all of you share your stories over the years, and certainly you hear the fruits of their labors. There is not an insignificant amount of time that goes into it, but I think from many of the stories you hear the value in bringing that story to light and taking the time to speak to decision makers. For many of you in the audience, I know you too have raised your voice, and I want to say thank you so much for being an ardent champion for the CF community. Your voice does matter. For those of you who haven't, we invite you to join us. And you can do it right now. Take out your phone and text Fight CF 52886 to sign up to become a cystic fibrosis advocate and get updates about action items you can take. Thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you to our panel, and thank you so much, Drusi.
And help me thank Mary and the panel, and thank you so much. Advocacy buy-in for people affected by CF was extraordinarily important in America this year, but advocacy is an international issue. Starting last year, CF Europe began an advocacy award, and this is announced at the European CF conference each year. The first two awardees were Snezana Bojin from Macedonia and Georgiana Nitu from Romania. They are the tip of the spear of advocacy efforts all over the globe for people with CF. Advocacy can be done on a large stage, but it can also be done in a personal way as people advocate for themselves. So let's shift to our next topic, which has to do with partnering for CF care. The CF Care Center network in the United States was established in the early 1960s as a collaboration between those parents, those early parents who formed the foundation, and care providers. The standardization of care through our powerful registry, through use of guidelines, and through quality improvement has contributed greatly to increased lifespan for people with CF. The critical nature of specialized care has also been demonstrated by our colleagues in Europe, and the European CF Society deserves great credit for setting guidelines that can be achieved not only in developed countries, but in parts of Europe that struggle with health care. At this meeting, our colleagues from Latin America gathered to build on some very early successes in improvements in care. But could we do more? CF clinicians provide medical expertise, but the experts in daily life are people who live with CF and their family members who support them. They see what clinicians see, but they also see a somewhat different picture of their lives. Marissa Bensha, an adult with CF, shared aspects of her daily CF care. But she also highlighted parts of her day that are also important to her life beyond treatments. Like CFTR, Marissa is at the center of many interconnected parts. She can share her personal goals and expertise in managing her daily life with her CF Care Center team, and the team can provide their medical expertise. By working together, they can co-produce daily care plans that are truly sustainable. In addition to open dialogue, technology can be useful to augment those discussions.
CF Health Check, which is still in a pilot phase, aims to provide, quote, same-page care. The CF Health Check app was built on the principle of co-creating tools, that is, having people affected by CF and clinicians work together. Through the app, patients can access their personal CF registry data, monitor their daily health, and share those goals at the upcoming care center visit. All of that data then would flow into their registry, their personal registry encounter. During a care center visit, the app could be used by both patients and care team members to see trends and decide together on the next actionable steps. Here's another example of an app that uses the power of working together between people with CF and clinicians to help with self-management and communications. The MyCF app was developed as a European Union Research and Innovation Horizon 2020 project and is coordinated from Valencia, Spain. Other apps have also been developed, for example, Design CF, an app that was also co-created by parents and clinicians to help with nutrition in young children. And that app is being piloted through the Success with Therapies Research Consortium, the research arm of Partnerships for Sustaining Daily Care. Partnership can also be taken to a programmatic level. CF clinicians and people affected by CF have worked together to improve care at centers. The CF Learning Network is making it easier for everyone to work together to improve health for all people with CF. The All Teach, All Learn philosophy emphasizes communication among all programs so that what is learned at one place can be shared at others. Not only can people with CF and their families support advocacy efforts and help to make care center visits more powerful, but I will conclude the last segment of this plenary by showing you ways that people with CF can support and power each other with their deep understanding of what it takes to live with this disease day after day after day after day after day after day. Enabling people with CF to create a sense of belonging around shared experiences contributes to well-being. Just as with CFTR, the true health of our community will come when all parts are working together. The power of connection has been known for a long time. As I said earlier, we don't always recognize what in retrospect seems so simple. Baumeister and Leary noted that belonging has multiple and strong effects on emotional patterns and on cognitive processes, and that the need to belong is a strong, powerful, pervasive motivation. This need to belong has motivated people all over the world to connect with each other through social media and to reach out to each other and link with each other. And the range of and diversity of those groups speaks to how powerful that motivation to connect really is. But I'd like to move on to another segment of this plenary and talk about ways that we can help contribute to that sense of belonging and empower connections. These are the two ways to connect that I'd like to highlight. The first are virtual events. So what are they? These are events that are developed by and for adults with CF and create a place to convene and connect online, to share experiences and inspire each other about daily life with CF, that life that happens between care center visits. People with CF who are facilitators receive training for running breakout groups in ways to keep the conversation real but positive, and clarifying that this isn't the place to discuss medical care. We have two offerings. The first is BreatheCon, our signature annual 2-day event. Well, annual, it's happened 2 times, but it will continue on. And shorter CF mini-cons. These are topic-specific events. It's very hard to explain what these events are, so I'd like to show you a video that tells you about that in the words of some of the organizers and participants. So if you would, roll the video.
Joining us, and welcome to the first ever MiniCon Young Adult.
And welcome to BreatheCon 2017.
I didn't feel like I had CF really with all these other folks.
I just feel so connected to everybody.
I talked with my CF doctor well before we even tried to get pregnant, so she was on board the whole time.
I mean, there's no words to describe the feeling you get when you wake up and you can take a breath and not have to worry. I'm sorry.
My doctor said to me, first time I met him after I moved to Michigan, he said, Mark, your goal is to stay healthy. So when a cure comes, you'll be ready.
Interact with many adults with CF. So to hear some of their stories about being a kid and secrecy and the shame that came up, the fact that we were willing to share that, it was like, oh my God, I totally remember that as a kid.
I'm like, bring it people, because I want to be there for anybody who has CF, and when they're there for me, oh man, I have never had this kind of camaraderie ever in my entire life.
This is such a great example of partnership and connection. Our job is to provide the platform, but the content is entirely created by the community. And many of you have heard me say this before, but the day of the first BreatheCon that I saw the program, which was the first time I saw it, my heart leapt out of my chest. These are amazing events. The two-day BreatheCon, the two-day BreatheCon will always be for adults, but in 2018 we will introduce some virtual events for family members as well. And you can find more information about the 6 virtual events that we are planning for 2018 at cff.org or click on the Get Involved button. You can either put in virtual events or just click on Get Involved, and that will take you to those virtual events for 2018, or go to the booth. So belonging can come from groups, as it does in these virtual events, but it can also come from one-to-one connections. And what I'd like to do now is tell you about the program that we have helped enable, but that came from the community. So in 2015, the Adult Advisory Council, this is a group of 12 adults who report directly to the CF Foundation Board, said that they were recommending that we create a program to fill an unmet need in the community, that need for one-to-one connection. Many of your care centers have tried to create mentoring programs, and you know these are powerful and important, but they're really hard to sustain over time. They take a lot of work. And the Adult Advisory Council told us that they thought it was important that we create a program that didn't create too much additional work at care centers, but that also was sustainable. So let me tell you a little bit about this one-to-one mentoring program, which is called CFPEERCONNECT. Here's how the program works. Mentors, who are all older than age 18, are referred by care centers and complete an online orientation and training that talks about what is within the mentoring sphere and what is not within the mentoring sphere. People seeking mentorship, and now anyone over age 16 can seek mentorship, can access this either through their care center, through chapter connections, or even just online looking for mentoring through cff.org. Matching is based on specific topics that the people seeking mentorship are interested in, and their preference for things such as gender, age, health status, etc. A central coordinator speaks directly with each member of this mentoring team and arranges all of the matches. But the scheduling of the matching and how frequently the groups, these pairs meet and what they talk about is their responsibility. CFPEERCONNECT is available in the U.S. only, and for those of you at care centers, you should have received some information at your centers within the past week or so. If not, you can access this material on cff.org/PeerConnect, or the materials are also available on Port CF. CFPEERCONNECT is a way to ease the challenges people with CF face as they go through the normal transitions of adult life. And all of us have gone through that transitions, and it would have been nice to have someone to speak to. When you have CF and there's this additional piece of things, how nice to be able to share those experiences. This program isn't for crisis intervention. It's to provide insights from someone who's been there. The most commonly discussed topics have to do with the realities of living a full and productive life, but the reality of balancing that with cystic fibrosis. We also provide matches for less common situations, and here are just two examples of that. How do I balance work and kids and managing my CF? I was diagnosed at an older age. Has anyone else gone through this? And there are any number of additional questions or issues that people would like us to help them with. And we turn to you at care centers to help us find mentors who might be able to answer those specific situations if they're not in our more common things. So as we come to the end of the plenary session, again, I'd like to show you a video because hearing from people who are really living with this experience and who benefit from mentoring will let you know how powerful this connection can be. So if you will, please roll the video.
Living with cystic fibrosis every day is a challenge. Some days certainly are easier than others.
CF has affected every decision I've ever made, every challenge I've ever had.
Trying to be a parent, but also putting my health first.
And it was definitely a challenge getting used to working full time.
My job was affected.
Being a mom, like the obvious challenges, not being around to raise my kids.
I had to accept a new identity for myself.
I felt alone because I had never met anyone else who'd ever had this thing.
It's difficult when you can't get together. You have to create avenues and places for you to meet these people.
I just didn't know if what I was experiencing was normal and if other people had gone through what I had gone through.
You can really feel that you're in this battle alone. CFPEERCONNECT is a peer mentoring program that provides one-to-one individual connections between adults with CF. Once you fill out a mentor request, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation will match you with another adult who has experience on the topics you're looking to learn more about. The two of you can take it from there and connect as often as you'd like on your own time through video, email, phone, or text.
It's a new program providing an opportunity to connect heart to heart.
To talk to someone who completely understands what we're going through.
It has provided me with a lot of information that I've been looking for that I was not able to find anywhere else.
I needed somebody to connect with CF. that's how to transplant.
My husband and I were wanting to get some more information about family planning from someone with CF who had been through it, who had experienced it.
I connected with another CF adult who was also a parent and thinking about going on disability.
All those questions I know I've dealt with, many other people have dealt with, and we all have different answers, but sharing those experiences is the valuable part.
To realize you're not alone in this disease and that there are people who are fighting it too and who are living with joy every day.
I'm a happier person since I started connecting with other people with CF because I've been inspired by so many other people out there.
To see people who are a little bit older and doing well gives you hope that that's possible for me as well.
People are on this earth together to help each other. And I really believe in a community, a family unit, helping people through life.
As Lindy Woodland so eloquently said, I really believe in a community, a family unit, helping each other through life. The parents who created this foundation might have only hoped that at some point we would find the underlying cause of this disease and might not have believed that we could find the CFTR gene. I think they would have been astonished to know that we have used that power and have been able to prove that by potentiating the CFTR protein, we have changed the course of this disease. But they would not have been surprised to know that by partnering with our community of communities, we could go even farther. When I look out at this audience, both online and in this room, I see strong, committed, dedicated people. And I know through shared goals and trust and communication, all parts of our community can potentiate our full power. And with that, I thank you, and thanks for the privilege of speaking today. Thank you.